In the previous video, we saw the use of with statement. Welcome to the 10th video titled Thread Communication Using a Queue. In this video, we'll take a look at the queue methods such as put, get, task done, and join. As discussed earlier, threading can be complicated when threads need to share data or resources. As we saw, the Python threading module provides many synchronization primitives, including semaphores, condition variables, events, and locks. While these options exist, it is considered a best practice to instead concentrate on using the module queue. Queues are much easier to deal with and make threaded programming considerably safer, as they effectively funnel all access to a resource of a single thread and allow a cleaner and more readable design pattern. We will simply consider these four queue methods. 1. Put function. This puts an item in the queue. 2. Get function. This removes and returns an item from the queue. 3. Task done function. This needs to be called each time an item has been processed. 4. Join function. This blocks until all items have been processed. In this example, we'll see how to use the threading module with the queue module. Also, we have two entities here that try to share a common resource, a queue. The code is as shown. First, the producer class. We don't need to pass the integers list because we use the queue to store the integers that are generated. The thread in the producer class generates integers and puts them in the queue in a for loop. The producer uses queue.putItemBlockTimeout to insert data into the queue. It has the logic to acquire the lock before inserting data in a queue. There are two possibilities. 1. If optional args block is true and timeout is none, this is the default case that we used in the example, it's necessary for us to block until a free slot is available. If timeout is a positive number, it blocks at most timeout seconds and raises the full exception if no free slot is available within that time. 2. If the block is false, put an item in the queue if a free slot is immediately available. Otherwise, raise the full exception. Timeout is ignored in this case. Here, put function checks whether the queue is full and then calls wait function internally, and after this, the producer starts waiting. Next is the consumer class. The thread gets the integer from the queue and indicates that it is done working on it using task done function. The consumer uses queue.getBlockTimeout and acquires the lock before removing data from the queue. If the queue is empty, it puts the consumer in a waiting state. Finally, in the main, we create the T1 thread for the producer and T2 and T3 for the consumer class. Let's run this code and see the output. For that, open the command prompt and navigate to the working directory. Run the Python file. After running the code, you should have an output similar to this. All the operations between the producer class and the consumer class can easily be resumed with the schema shown. Great! This video showed us how to carry out thread communication with the help of queue. In the next video, we'll evaluate the performance of multi-thread applications.